We have Michael Elrod-Erickson on with us.
Come on.
Keep pulling! Pulling! Yeah, there we go!
Tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I own my own coaching company, Premier Power and Performance. I work primarily with powerlifters, but I'm happy to work with anyone who's serious about their training. I'm also the assistant coach for Team USA in the IPL, the last 2 years at the World Championships. And then I also coach the collegiate powerlifting team at the University of Alabama in Huntsville.
UAH. How long have you been doing UAH?
So about 2 years now. I graduated from there in 2024, and before that, I was a student there, obviously, and I started the strength sports club while I was a student.
I
Gradually
see.
grew that, and it was more of like a social club to kind of help lifters like get to know each other. And then after I graduated, honestly, the club was kind of struggling. It wasn't like really taking off, and with me leaving it, it looked a little dim. So we decided to make the switch to more of like a sports club instead. And then I volunteered to coach the team. And since then, it's
Nice.
been doing great. We've got 14 people, and pretty much all of them, minus one or two that were injured or sick, just did the Collegiate Cup 2 weekends ago.
That's cool. I saw you were there. I didn't know exactly why, but it's USAPL, so you can coach anybody. But this might be a sidebar, but did you know Drew?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah, we were pretty good friends.
I'm still good friends with him as well. He's back in Huntsville for his PT rotations, I believe. He's in Huntsville still. He was just at Huntsville Hospital, but we still talk all the time. I guess he got into powerlifting around the same time as me, and I met him through barbell medicine. And then he did a powerlifting meet, and I came up. I think Amberly Coolman and a couple other people I know up there all did that same meet, and we all just kind of hung out and went to it. It was like a SPF meet, shit powerlifting, but it was funny to watch some of those people barefoot on the platform
Yep.
like animals. So yeah, fucking crazy. But yes, anyways, Drew's a cool guy. I don't know if he was part of that club, but I know he was in kinesiology at the time. So
Yeah, he was an officer for 1 year, and then he graduated.
okay. So right when yep, that makes sense. I also did. I was the vice president of ours at Alabama in 22, maybe, and we had the same deal. It was like a pretty decent size club. I think we just called it like the strength and conditioning club or kinesiology club or something like that. So we had more members.
Hmm.
We ended up doing like a couple of meetings, and I had a guest speaker that I invited come, and they talked. So it was pretty cool, but you know, you can only get so much out of people in those types of clubs because like there's no finality to it. It's just like they join it. There's not really that much going on. There's no real meetings. So
That was the exact same issue we had. In the first 2 years, we managed to grow the mailing list to 300 people, which is massive for a school of like 10,000.
yeah,
One in every however many, if you walk into the cafeteria, you're guaranteed to like see at least a couple people. But when it came to like actually attending events, it was just a little underwhelming. Like we had great guest speakers. I got Jordan Shallow to come speak for us, John Flagg,
nice.
a handful of people, but like we had maybe 5 people show up and listen to those. The only events that like really did well were the semesterly powerlifting meets that we put on, like unofficial, unsanctioned, but we tend to have like 25 to 30 people do those. So we kept that going and then just transitioned to be like a club sport team. So we've got weekly practices every Sunday morning before the rec center opens for 2 hours, which I coach in person for those. And then otherwise it's like training plan that people do on their own like 3 other days per week.
I mean, that's cool. I never would have been able to get that kind of participation. So that's something. Um, well, good transition to tell us how you found out about powerlifting.
Sure. So I first got started lifting weights because I wanted to play basketball in high school, but I didn't make the team. So I started lifting, planning on having like a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant like revenge story. Uh, that never worked out. But I realized I enjoyed lifting weights in a way that I never did like traditional sports. And I think the big thing for me was like the clear sense of like progress resulting from your efforts. That tends to be lacking in other sports and just other areas of life. Whereas like the gym is a great spot to see that. And then it just also kind of coincided with the time frame when, I mean, you're also kind of like going through puberty at that kind of time. My grandfather had just passed away. I had my first breakup. Lots of like emotional turmoil.
Yep, the stars aligning.
Yep. And then that's kind of what took me from like just training to like, oh, I can turn up my music really loud and max out and like this feels awesome. And from there, it's a natural evolution to kind of get involved in powerlifting. So I did my first meet in 2017, SPF deadlift only, and then first full power meet in 2018 when I was 16 years old, something like that.
Started way before I did too.
Yeah.
I
My
didn't start
first-
till 2018, so
Gotcha. My first entry on MyFitnessPal was dated March 2016. So I
damn,
must have started training somewhere roughly around there.
that's kind of insane. I don't even think lifting was really on my radar even back then. I played basketball in high school, and then like we lifted, but not really. Played football as well. Same thing. It was kind of like it's so weird to think back on it because I remember doing like sets of 10 and then maxing out. There's like no peaking cycle or anything, no thought to it. Just like you're doing sets of 10 this week and you're maxing out next week, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
I got super fortunate because I was getting into lifting kind of in the time frame when information became like so available. Like I remember sitting in study hall in high school, like reading uh, Elite FTS articles, like T Nation, although that's probably not the best source. I would much prefer Elite FTS. I mean, I was even watching YouTube videos from like Candido, Mike Tashir, Reactive Training Systems, like that kind of stuff. So I got super fortunate in terms of like having access to pretty good information right off the bat. And my uncle is a physical therapist. He's in the like clinical athlete kind of circles, so like
yeah,
he's pretty aware and like good one too. And he's always been a tremendous help in terms of like shaping my uh, like direction of like where to go to learn and get good information and that kind of stuff.
yeah. That's always probably the best resource is someone that can tell you where to find the resource. Because no one knows everything, so if you just know where to go and look, and then if you know what's quality or not as well, probably helps. Like you said, T Nation. I mean, T Nation is fine, especially as a beginner. It's probably really good because it can make you push a little harder than you probably should, but you're very unlikely to get injured at that state in your career. So
Yeah. I think to some extent it's good to just like learn more, even if it's from bad sources. And like eventually over time, you start to realize on your own like what's worth giving credit to and what's not. And you just kind of like shape and mold it. So it's like sculpting. Like at first you just have to put on like more and more clay. And then at some point you start like taking off the bits that you don't actually need. But to begin with, you just need like a big mass.
yeah, I mean, shout out sculptors. I'm sure we have a lot of them, even in Alabama.
It's a good analogy though. You got the point.
I did. It is good to kind of learn it all and then see what's most useful. You can also see like what not to do. I mean, it's not very obvious early on, but if you learn something early on, like I remember when I first started powerlifting, I was doing like banded triples, and I was like banded chain triples because they were fun. Which in a beginner level, it doesn't really matter, but they might not be that useful.
Yeah.
You know?
I definitely fell victim to a lot of that kind of stuff early on. It's like doing things that sound cool or that you read online that have no real application to you. Like when my max squat was 300, I was already trying out a reverse band kind of
Yeah,
squat.
of course. Heavy holds,
Yeah.
static walkouts, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I think my first really forte into powerlifting was like Mark Bell,
Okay.
super training videos. And then, he's kind of gone off the deep end since then. But in the beginning, it was kind of like a golden age of information there from them. Because they just had all the biggest names. They would come on their podcast, or they would just train with them, or they had training videos, which were, I think, super useful.
Yeah. That was a great resource back in the day. Nowadays, but
Yeah, I mean, you can learn about fucking taking your shoes off and grounding while you're running a marathon and trying carnivore and shitting your brains out. I don't know, stuff like that. They're into weird stuff over there. That's West Coast for you. There's always innovation, so to speak. So you did talk about some of the I would say premier coaches, not to use your brand, but premier coaches. Who are some of the names that you think molded your philosophy the most?
sure. I would say the single biggest one has probably got to be my coach. I've been working with Stuart Locke for 3.5 years now, something like that. I originally found him because I took the Prescript barbell coaching course, and he taught that, and I thought he did a fantastic job. So I reached out to him. Prior to that, I worked with a couple people. None of those really worked. It only took like a week or a month or something like that to realize that like they didn't actually try or care or like pay any attention. So yeah, I think if you could find a good coach, you'll know pretty quick right off the bat. And if they're not any good, like it'll also stand out. But yeah, he's been great. It's definitely been really helpful in terms of like learning a lot firsthand. I think you can get a lot out of like how to be a good coach by having one. But beyond that, I would say I've learned a ton from my internships. I started interning between my junior and senior year of high school at a local like sports performance kind of facility. And then after a couple like that, like I ended up going to Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning, a pretty big one up in Massachusetts. I realized that I hate working with athletes because they care about sports, and I don't really give a shit about sports. I care about training, and they don't really give a shit about training.
Yeah,
so it's just like a clash of priorities there. So I realized I just wanted to work with powerlifters, and that's why I ended up interning at Kabuki as my like final internship right before graduating college. Rest in peace, Kabuki Strength. That was right before they like kind of dropped off and died, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I still learned a ton while I was there because they had, I think, 6 full-time coaches, and I got to learn from some like pretty big, pretty well-known, like really good ones, like Brandon Morgan, Kyle Young. I mean, I even got a little bit of like hands-on time with Chris Duffin, but he was more so on the like engineering and business kind of side at that point.
Yeah, and they at that time they coached like everybody.
Yeah.
Like when they were at the height of Kabuki, they were coaching like pretty much everybody that was a big name.
Yeah. Kabuki was never like massive here in the South. Most people knew of them because of the Kabuki deadlift bar. They'd sponsor a bunch of meets. In terms of like coaching, they're a pretty dominant presence, especially on the West Coast. So yeah, that was phenomenal. I got to learn a ton. I got to make a lot of connections, and that definitely set up my career in terms of like coaching powerlifting, and has definitely shaped my kind of ideology. Even beyond that, there's a few more. Jordan Hellier and Thomas Lilly from Zero Weakness. I think they do a fantastic job, so I like actively seek out more information and mentorship from them. Like I'm taking their coach development course at the moment. You saw me down at AMP for that meet when Thomas Lilly was here in the U.S. I went out of my way to go meet up with him. And then, honestly, like I'd say formal education is kind of underrated. I got my degree in exercise science. A lot of powerlifting coaches don't really bother going to college, but I think it makes a huge difference because if you don't know like adduction, internal rotation, scapular retraction, like this is literally like the language of movement. If you don't know those terms or what muscles are, where they are, their actions, like you genuinely don't understand movement. You don't have the language for like understanding there. So I think like a good anatomy class, good kinesiology classes, like definitely lay the foundation for like a higher level of coaching as well. So I think that can't be discredited.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree wholeheartedly there. It just, like you said, lays foundation. It kind of gives you the basics, but then also, I mean, part of the point of school is to learn how to learn.
For sure.
So it teaches you how to find information that's actually true. I don't know, like biomechanics is somewhat important, but I feel like it's less important in powerlifting than most things. Just because people are going to find a way, it doesn't really matter most of the time.
Yeah.
But as far as like anatomy, absolutely, because on top of knowing muscle actions, it's also knowing what you want to target. Like everybody knows what works in a squat, but it's the little things in between your squats that you need to focus on. And you need to know which ones each person needs more than the other. You know,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like some people do like weakness focused, but you can target specific muscle groups more when you know what you're looking for. So,
yeah, 100%.
and then, I mean, I don't know if knowing energy systems and metabolites and glycolysis is really that important, but when you talk about like GPP and off season, people need to train efficiently without killing themselves, and knowing some of that stuff and cellular biology can be useful, albeit not super important for powerlifting.
Sure. I would say the majority of the stuff that I use on like a daily basis or that like kind of helps set me apart didn't come from school. It came from like putting myself out there in terms of internships and acquiring knowledge from like other professionals in the field. But I still think the formal education was worth it for sure. And it definitely gave me a greater respect of like the health kind of aspects of fitness. Your average person needs to be getting 150 minutes 2 times weekly resistance training. Like those kind of guidelines, I might have kind of like brushed them off in terms of importance prior to like my general education. I was like, oh, everyone should just lift. And now I'm like, okay, I mean, there's multiple ways to like live a healthy lifestyle. And like I think I have a greater understanding of like why those things matter and what that could look like for other people.
Luckily now you don't really have to worry about that. I mean, resistance training and 150 minutes of low intensity cardiovascular exercise doesn't really matter because we're getting rid of red 40 and we have beef tallow to cook our fries in at In-N-Out. So everything's going great. Don't take Tylenol. But everything else is going fine. I don't even know if you need to exercise anymore because beef tallow, just drink it. Anyways, I can do that all day. I'm so off track now because that's always in the back of my mind. I always like to talk shit about that.
Yeah, I think on like a societal level, we definitely have emphasis in the wrong places. But ultimately, like the little niche that I've chosen is much more powerlifting. I'm not really worried about trying to fix big issues like that. I just want to help people get as strong as they can.
I would say most powerlifters aren't really worried about like each single ingredient in their food anyways.
Yeah.
More the macro level, which is probably where they should be. It's pretty impressive now to me. I feel like the Alabama powerlifting has shrunk. You've been doing it for a while as well, so you might have seen this. I feel like since COVID, it's shrunk with the amount of people that are competing. But I think the quality of the people competing is as good or better than it's ever been, just in our state alone.
Okay. Quality as in like how strong they are or just their
No, quality of the
overall-
person.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I was
I
gonna
mean,
say like your average lifter nowadays is a lot more educated than they used to be. So I think understanding things like what attempts to take, or if they got a red light, they might actually know why, rather than being totally clueless. Like I think a lot of that has to do with the availability of information, just like gradually getting more and more accessible.
yeah, it's probably partly that, and that we have a bigger diversity of lifter. Like it's not just the gym bro
Sure.
that started getting tests from the guy in the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a,
Powerlifting is reaching the nerds nowadays.
yeah, it's amalgamation of like students and moms and grandmas, and it just trickles down to every state, and hopefully Alabama's keeps growing. We'll see. It's hard to tell sometimes with the way they run like nationals and regionals and sub regionals and whatever else. It spreads it thin.
Yeah. That is definitely one of the big problems with powerlifting at the moment. Like, there's just so many federations, it ends up where they compete with each other to the point where some of them just like die off. Like, like no shade, but I saw a Powerlifting America meet here in Huntsville scheduled for a couple months ago, and it just didn't make. There were like 2 people registered, so they were like, "Well, we just have to cancel it."
I mean, it happens. We had a Powerlifting United meet in Mobile, and it got canceled for the same reason. We had 7 people signed up. I was one of them, one of the 7.
Gotcha.
So it's area dependent too. I don't know. Like, there's a lot more lifters closer to Birmingham than there are closer to Huntsville. Same thing with Mobile. There's not as many people in that area, and it's further away from everything else.
I think we
So,
have a good amount here in Huntsville. I mean, like the Lift Miss meet at Arsenal.
but it's full, yeah.
Yeah, they just totally filled that one up.
Yeah, that's true. They
Also,
added the
regionals
second
when
day.
it was right up here did really well. So
Regionals I can't count though, because people drive from all over to do it. So because regionals, I guess I don't know why. Uh, yeah, I need to look back at that roster and see who else is doing it. Maybe there are people from traveling further, but the Maverick meet only had 22 or so.
So I actually did that one. I think a large reason that it didn't have as many people was it was the day after Halloween. Like personally, if I'd realized it was the day after Halloween, I wouldn't have done the meet. I just didn't think about that while checking my calendar and scheduling it. Because like I would have liked the chance to like celebrate the holiday and like have that be fun, and then do a meet another time. But instead, I was staying in a hotel room, just sitting there waiting around for the meet the next morning.
I mean, yeah, timing is definitely going to be always a factor. I didn't even realize it was that day either. I didn't remember it being on that day either, though. I got food poisoning at it, so I was on my deathbed for 2 days after.
I see. Yeah, that's rough.
I don't really recall anything that happened there. I don't know how we can do better timing. I know that Powerlifting United is not doing regionals right now. Like next year, they're not doing regionals. I think they're trying to help that local meets are not filling up. But then you have Powerlifting USAPL. So I don't know what kind of cannibalism that's going to be. It seems like more younger lifters are going that route, so it might be fine. Might be an even spread. I don't really know, though.
Yeah, I think USPA is starting to get established in Alabama again. They've got 2 or 3 meets booked for this upcoming year, which I'm a USPA referee, so fine by me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm not like, I don't have strong allegiances to any federation. It's like, if you're putting on good meets and people are enjoying themselves, then I'm happy. That's what matters to me.
Been to a USPA meet in a while because of all the shit that went down. I don't know. I don't know I don't know how it would do. It'll be interesting if it can grow without like Charlie behind it here,
Sure.
because he was a big part of that.
We have a lot of really good USPA meet directors here in the South. Gary Brewer in Florida, John Micah, Mississippi. We've got some in Georgia, like Valerie Smith and Barbara. So, like, I think we don't have any directly here in Alabama, but those kind of people are starting to try and fill in the gap and, like, put more meets here.
Yeah, we shall see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's just we have a lot of people competing for space and for the lifters. You know, like whoever offers the best event is going to attract more of the lifters. But as you know, like 365 Strong is here putting on some in Mobile. I think those are great. That was a lot of fun. But them, USPA, USAPL, Powerlifting United, SPF, we've got at least like 5 different federations. Powerlifting America, so we've got 6 right here in one state. So
far too many, if you ask me, but who knows? It could work out. Probably not, but it could. I'm just not confident in it. Like I said, I feel like there's less people overall that are competing in Alabama, so I don't know. I don't know how the split's going to be.
All-time world record. Let's go, Timmy!
there is like one trend that I've seen in some of the powerlifting federations that I think is concerning. So it's definitely more so in the USAPL, IPF, like tested kind of circles. But a lot of like spotters and loaders are getting obsessed with like trying to go as fast as possible. They're like posting and bragging about their like turnaround times on the platform. They're like, oh, we averaged like 45 seconds per lift. Like to the point where they're like genuinely competitive about this and like trying to do it as fast as possible. And I think they're totally losing sight of like what actually matters. So I understand where they're coming from. If there's 50 lifters at your meet and each of them take 9 attempts and you add 2 seconds per attempt, that adds up to 15 total minutes that like everyone's just like sitting around waiting. I get that. But at the same time, it's like nobody came to your meet to go home faster. If they just wanted to go home, they would have stayed home. They came here to like have a good day and have their best performance. And if you trying to like go so fast that you start making mistakes and like ruin that for them becomes an issue, then like what was the point of any of it? So like I'm getting kind of tired of it because I had a lifter whose hand was like underneath the bar when they like shoved him back into the rack as spotters, and it like pinched his finger, and he was like bleeding, which isn't a huge deal, but if it was like half an inch further over, you know, that could be a crushed finger or like severed finger. So like I don't want people like rushing lifters or like being sloppy spotting because they're already thinking about the next weight to load instead of like being present. But I've also seen like a spotter adjusting the secondary pin, like putting it at a lower rack height while the lifter was like walking out rather than like actually paying attention and spotting. If something happened, like they're not even looking.
Yeah.
Or someone was deadlifting and they tossed one of the like change plates, the like chips for setting a record from like one side of the platform across because they didn't have them like set out ahead of time. But like someone's actively like lifting and you just toss that across the platform right in front of them. It's like little things like that, or not bothering to like center the bar before the lifter walks out, so they have to like stop and think about that. And if they don't, then they end up like hitting the rack and getting jostled. Like double checking that the weight is loaded properly. I think all of these things make for a better lifter experience than like just going fast. So I think if we continue down this trend of like speed being super emphasized, it's going to be a problem. And I think ultimately it just comes from a disconnect between like meet staff caring about something different than what the actual lifters do. Because like no lifter is like prioritizing speed to that level, you know?
Yes and no. If I'm competing and the meet is going 12 hours, I'm very pissed off. I would rather go home. But I will say, I've spotted and loaded at a lot of meets, and I will consistently go as fast as possible to load and unload the weights. Not necessarily like rushing a lifter. I wouldn't do that. I don't even care if people take their full minute to get set up. But like to actually change the weights and get new weights loaded, that's the only thing that I think you would need to rush. Getting your finger nicked or crushed, I don't know, that one's tough because some people, it's hard to tell when you're spotting because everybody's different. Some people will wait for the spotters to take the weight. Some people will hate it if the spotters touch it and they're trying to walk it in themselves. So it's really it's so hard. Same thing with like liftoffs. If people don't have someone to lift off, you don't know unless they tell you how they want it to be lifted off. So I don't know. I'd give some grace there to them, but I don't know about like if someone's genuinely rushing a lifter or tossing things on the platform, like wait until they're done. I don't know what the fuck the point of that is. I still would say though, like getting the weights on and off as fast as you can is going to speed it up by seconds for every lifter. And centering the bar, I always feel like, and I always tell my lifters, like, there's no such thing as a perfect environment. It doesn't exist. And I feel like if you go into it knowing there's some chaos afoot, then you can correct and not have to be like, fuck, the bar's not centered. My day's ruined. And that to me tells me someone's already in their head before they even get out there. If something like that is going to set someone off, we're in a bad spot to begin with.
I just meant like this is much more relevant in like USAPL. They've got a power bar plus the combo rack. If the bar's not centered, they have like this much clearance before the plates like actually hit.
Yeah.
So if the bar is like shifted all the way over and they don't think to like center it themselves, then they just end up jostling against the rack and then they have a really shitty walkout.
Listen. Not to be that guy, but have they ever heard of a re-rack?
Fair enough. I mean, it would be kind of their fault at that point.
Like, you can just walk it back in. Reset.
Yeah. It's just, I would say, like, I've done plenty of WRPF and then Powerlifting United meets. I think you guys do a great job of, like, hitting that balance between the two. I just see an increasing trend of that, like, really emphasis on, like, speed and rushing amongst that, like, USAPL kind of crowd in particular.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like headed in the wrong direction, and if it continues, then we're gonna see the pendulum swing like way too far in that direction.
I agree in that as well. Like spotters and loaders taking credit for anything is fucking. They're big ass losers. I mean, that's the most loser shit I've ever heard of. You should be a shadow. You don't really matter. You're there to save other people for their big day. I also. The people that used to spot and load, like the elite meets, like that group that would go around and spot, they were nice. They were super nice in person, cool. But, like, I just never understood, like, the theatrics of taking people's belts off for them after they get done with a lift, or hugging them nonstop while you're walking them back into the rack, or after they finish a deadlift, like, immediately grabbing them when nothing's wrong. I always just felt weird about that. Like, keep your hands off of people. Let them do their thing. You be their shadow. So it's not just USAPL, but I have seen where like USAPL regionals and nationals, people will post videos, highlights of them spotting and loading. It's funny sometimes, but also clearly some people are going to take that to heart and be like, this is my time to shine. I'm spotting Ashton Ruska. It's like, no, you're nobody.
Coaching is the same way though. There's one really big coach from the IPF that comes to mind for me. Not going to say his name because I don't think it's necessary. But he's got
Joey Flex.
I'll refrain from commenting. But
I'll say it.
Anytime that his big lifters hit something, he's looking at the crowd and he's like, "Everyone, look at me! I did something amazing." And it's like
the man in the arena.
Yeah, it's like your athlete did something cool. All you did was like write a program and like maybe say the right thing to them at the right moment. Like coaching is not meant to be cool. Athletes are meant to be cool.
Right. I mean, that's also how I feel. I always try to like back away when someone does something because it's their moment. I try to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Those guys you're talking about are also the ones that are like, it's time to go to war. And they're putting the fucking sword emojis in their posts and,
sure,
painting their face up and shit. So
yeah, I just view it as a red flag. It's like if a coach is looking at the audience rather than looking at their lifter during a moment of like celebration, it's like no longer they're happy about their lifter's achievement. Suddenly they are somehow thinking that like this is their achievement, which is just not the case.
Yeah, they can't wait to add another +1 to their Instagram bio of record holders or whatever.
Yeah.
Shit that doesn't matter for 200, Alex. Yeah, that's good though. I mean, you know, I feel like it's good to hate on people every once in a while. So it's it's also punching up, which is okay.
I would just say it's a good thing to be aware of in the powerlifting community. I would
Yes,
look
losers exist.
I would look for people that carry themselves in a way that you want and like value supporting you as a person and your achievements rather than themselves.
Wow, very nicely said. Ego losers. That's what I say. I'll just simplify it.
Fair enough.
I mean, it is sort of an egotistical sport in general because it's individual based. So there is going to be some I and team there. But it's when the other people that aren't doing anything. Like you literally did nothing but put a number down for them to do.
Yeah.
They did all the work.
The support roles aren't meant to be celebrated. It's like the athletes are. And
Yeah.
leave it that way so that the athletes can have their moment.
And yeah, I mean, it's like they do this though, but like a towel boy for the University of Alabama wearing his championship ring out in public.
Yeah.
That shit needs to stay boxed up. I think we should talk about like how we can improve the powerlifting situation. How the maybe not even if you want to go level by level, how the state level Alabama powerlifting can improve, and then what it would mean to national level, elite level powerlifting.
Gotcha. So I'm not sure that I have like state versus national. I just have like just in general. I feel like the key thing that powerlifting needs to grow is not like some weird gimmick of like changing how meets work or anything like that. I think we just need better marketing. We need to like speak to the people that would really benefit from being involved in the sport better and more. So there's like two big groups that stand out to me. We need to get more women in the sport. At the moment, there's still 2 to 3 guys for every woman in powerlifting.
Yeah.
If we just managed to balance that out to like 1-to-1, that would already mean the sport grew 25 to 30%. And that's 25 to 30% more money in the sport. So we can have more meets, higher production value, all that kind of stuff. Plus, honestly, I think a lot of women would really benefit from powerlifting for like a couple different reasons. I would say we're in a society that like really emphasizes how you look rather than like what you can do. And powerlifting is really great about kind of flipping that. It can help a lot of not just women, but people in general, like adopt a view of their body more so as like, what can I do with it as opposed to like, how does it look? And then the other thing is there's a lot of people out there, again, especially women, that want to eat more foods. They're like, oh man, I really wish I could have that dessert or another glass of wine or whatever, but they're worried about like, I don't want to look fat. Well, muscle mass is very metabolically demanding. I've put on almost 70 pounds since I first started lifting, and the amount that I have to eat has like quite literally doubled.
Yeah.
Like just eating enough to like maintain my current size is actually difficult. I have to like add olive oil to most of my food, even like on top of pizza. I drink like milk, juice, add dessert to pretty much every meal. Like it's like genuinely hard to like eat enough. Whereas I don't think most people have that sort of issue. It's like, well, if you put on muscle mass, suddenly you can eat a significant quantity more food per day, and you can like have basically whatever you want whenever you want without having to like worry about that.
Yeah. Powerlifting can be very, even though it's weight class based, it can be very anti-diet friendly, so to speak.
Sure. I more so just meant from like a, if you put on muscle, you can afford to eat more, rather than the cultural thing of like powerlifters just don't really care what they're consuming or if they get chubby. But
Yeah, it's a little
there's
both.
both.
I
Yeah.
mean, not everyone looks like a bodybuilder on the platform. In
Yeah.
fact, most don't.
But you
Yeah.
can. There's no reason not to if you want to.
Yeah, but it's not as fun.
Well,
It's not as fun. You're telling me adding a spoonful of olive oil to your baked chicken and rice is as fun as the triple cheeseburger from Whataburger I just ate for lunch. That's what you're telling me.
well, I do both.
Yeah, well,
I have to do both pretty much to eat enough.
no.
So
Yeah,
the other group that I think could really benefit from powerlifting that we should like really be trying to market to harder is masters lifters, like older individuals. They have the disposable income in a way that like younger people that are just kind of getting professionally established don't. Uh, so frankly, they're good for the sport. Plus, the sport is good for them because as you age, you lose bone mineral density and muscle mass. At least if you just sit around on your ass, if you like do something, you can easily maintain those, if not like continue to grow. So honestly, I think women and older people are exactly what the sport needs, and the sport could like really benefit them. So I think we just need to like find ways to like convey that to them better, and then we could get more of them into the sport, which helps the sport. Again, because more money, but also like if you're complaining about like powerlifting not having viewership, how many people like view sports that they've never done before? Like football is the big exception. A lot of people watch football having never done it, but for the most part, people want to like be able to relate and understand what's going on. And frankly, most people can't do that with powerlifting because they've never lifted heavy. Right, like past 300 pounds, most people lose any conception of like what that weight means. Uh, so I think if we just got more people into powerlifting or lifting weights in general, viewership of the sport would go up, respect of the sport would go up. I think it solves pretty much all the problems at once.
I think that's fair. Um, I don't know. I don't know if viewership is really going to change. I think in-person viewership is what we need more of.
Okay.
But like viewership online, uh, I just think it's too boring. I, even if I sit down and watch one, it's mostly background music.
Hmm.
Like it's just in the background for me. I don't know if maybe if you have, the more lifters you have in a meet, the more family members they have that might tune in and watch. But I think that's the extent of what you're going to get is like family members or people at their gym or like for us, if it's a meet in Alabama, we might watch it because we know people in Alabama that compete. Or if it's a high level meet, we would watch it because you're watching for world records. And you're not going to get that at like a local meet, even with masters lifters. But I do think we do need more of both.
I would say like how different is that from any other sport? When's the last time you went and watched a high school basketball game? That would just be weird if you didn't know anyone, right?
Yeah,
Like you only watch professional sports, so yeah, I mean it makes sense that only watching powerlifting for the like world records is what people do.
right.
So I don't think that's anything like strange. That's how all sports are.
Yeah,
And like I don't really sit down and watch basketball. So the fact that I don't really sit down and watch that much powerlifting either isn't that different.
yeah. I guess yeah. People that don't watch sports aren't going to watch it regardless, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd mostly just be background. But either way, it definitely the more people that do it, the more obviously eyes that'll be on it regardless. I just think we need a little bit more in-person participation at some of these meets. You saw it at the Maverick. That was one of the quieter meets that I've ever been to. Which, it just happens sometimes. But you had somebody that was number 2 in the world at one point competing at the meet, and it's almost like a library there. But I do think we definitely need more women in the sport. I find it surprising. It felt like there was a big trajectory of that, and then it slowed down now. And it's funny because I always feel like, to me, coaching women is like the most satisfying in coaching, because you take guys, they're like all meathead, brawn driven. They're like, they see John Hack and they're like, oh, I can definitely do that one day. All I gotta do is try. which they're completely wrong, but the delusions of grandeur and all. But with women, they have like zero expectations. They don't know what they can do. And I always find that more fun when someone doesn't know what their limit is.
Yeah, I've seen that to some extent. Like I'd say it's much more common in women, but like I've seen plenty of guys that fit that bill, and I've also seen like some women that have that like, oh, I'm going to be one of the best in the world. Uh, Especially like on the untested side. I had a pretty successful like untested female, and she was a handful to work with. So I mean, I think it ultimately just comes down to the individual, but
Yeah. It's just probably a higher percentage on the women's side. Just because they didn't grow up lifting weights ever. A lot of guys lifted weights for sports, so they kind of have an idea of what it feels like. And then they get a vision of someone that's really good at it. And then, yeah. I actually, when I was in Tuscaloosa, I went to Crunch for a while because it was like walking distance from my house. And there's this guy that was on the platforms were always full there because Tuscaloosa has 1 million fucking college students. And this guy was squatting, and I was just like, hey man, can I deadlift behind you on the platform? And he was like, yeah, no worries. And he was probably like 170 pounds, maybe 5'9". And then we were talking, and he was like, yeah, I just started test, and I just know I'm going to be an IFBB pro very soon. Like within the next 2 years, I'll be IFBB pro. And I was just like, brother, what the fuck are you talking about? Have you ever seen a bodybuilder before? Because you look nothing like them. You look like an average guy, and you're already running drugs. That's the kind of stuff that I hear a lot of. I feel like like you can go to any gym and you have some guy like that.
yeah, that's fair. I would say like just to piggyback off that, if you aren't already amazing, there's probably no reason to take drugs. Like that's how I view it personally. I've been lifting for 10 years and I hit pretty good numbers, like definitely respectable, but they're not incredible. And like I realize that I'm never going to be an incredible lifter. So I see zero reason for me to ever take performance enhancing drugs because I would just be even more mediocre. So it's like if people want to make that choice on their own, that's fine. I've worked with untested lifters. But I would never really encourage someone to, especially if they're not like already like on the brink of greatness. Drugs are not going to be the thing that like help get you there.
I think if you wanted to give the people some meet day tips on like how they can improve their strategy and meet day approach,
I would say, like going back to that Maverick meet, a lot of people were not ready on time, like not warmed up. I mean, even some of the big lifters there that like were working up to like a 700-pound kind of squat, for example, most of them waited until probably second attempts of the flight before them to like even start warming up. And it was very predictable that that was not going to work because there's some pretty clear factors. So I would say before we even get into it, like the big thing that we're after on meet day is we want that last warm up to be about 10 minutes before you get on the platform, so that you're not sitting around getting cold, but you still have some rest time before like going out and taking your opener. You don't want it to be like super close to it where it's like 3 to 5 minutes and you're kind of rushed. So in order to do that, you need to plan backwards. So you can say that each lifter or attempt before you is about a minute. If you want like a super precise kind of version instead, you can time 3 to 5 attempts at your specific meet and get a feel for like how quick they're running. So like start a timer when they say platform ready for one lifter, go until the platform ready like 3 lifters later, 5 lifters later, whatever it is, and then divide that time by 3 to 5, for example, and that gives you like exactly how fast they're running on average for your meet. But 1 minute works as a general ballpark. I don't honestly like time them that often anymore. So if you know when you're going to be up on the platform, and you work backwards of how many attempts are before you in your flight, and then in the flight before that, you know when you should be taking your last warm-up, and you just kind of want to work backwards from there. So you should go into the meet already knowing what warm-ups you want to take, like how many, what kind of jumps, and then I would even go so far as to write out like how to load them, because most people are not that familiar with kilo plates. So like my sheet always says like red, yellow, collar, so that I know exactly what I'm putting on the bar. And if you don't have that kind of planned out ahead of time, there's a super helpful app called Bars Loaded. You can click on the little plates. It tells you what weight it equals, or you type in what weight you want, and it tells you which plates to load. Another helpful thing is consider like how many total people are in the flight and how many warm-up racks you have. So that Maverick meet, for example, we had 15 lifters in that second flight, I think, and only 2 racks. So it's going to be 7 or 8 people per rack, which is going to be pretty crowded and slow. But on top of that, the flight before us was only like 9 lightweight women, so that flight was going to go really quick. So it's pretty predictable that we weren't going to have a lot of time. It was going to be pretty crowded in the warm-up room. It was cold, so a lot of people are potentially looking at trying to take a little extra warm-ups. And there's people working up to really heavy weights, so they should have gotten started much, much sooner. Which I accounted for all of these things, which is why I was ready like right on time, but almost no one else did. So some other things that can be useful is it's better to start fast and then kind of slow down as it gets heavier than have to do the opposite, like start slow and finish fast. Because as the weights get heavy, you would probably rather have more rest. Whereas like your first couple warm-ups, it doesn't really matter. Do you want me to keep going on some topics of like ways that you can kind of speed up or slow down?
Yeah, you can keep going. I think those are great. I would agree. I find it surprising because I've always thought your last warm-up should be how long your flight is. You know, I mean, if you've got 15 people, you should probably plan on your last warm-up being 15 minutes before you go out, which means 1 minute per person, 15 lifts ahead. If you're midway through the flight, you count those 7 or 8 people in front of you. So, I mean, I find it surprising that happened at Maverick based off of the experience of people that were lifting in it. And because you knew, like you just said, there were lightweights ahead of you. So, of course, it's going to go quicker. I don't know. That was frustrating. But yes, continue with other ways to improve your meet day strategy.
Okay. I would say, so there's some specific strategies that you can use if you are kind of behind schedule or the meet is moving like really slow. And oftentimes these aren't like super necessary if it's just you. A lot of these are things that I've picked up working with like Team USA, where we have maybe 5 lifters in 3 different flights across 2 different platforms. Like at that point, like shit happens and you kind of have to adapt. But even still, like these are really useful skills if you're ever handling someone at a meet or even just managing your own warm-ups. So if the meet is moving really quick or you're a little behind schedule, some good options. If you normally do like a dynamic warm-up or stretching, rather than doing all of that before you start taking your warm-ups, you can work that in between your warm-ups instead, save a bit of time. You can also take 2 warm-ups back-to-back, especially if you have someone there like handling you changing the weights. You can step under the bar, squat 1 plate, put it back in the rack. They add a second plate, you do another squat. You're done within like literally like 60 seconds and you already banged out your first 2 warm-ups, rather than having like a whole nother cycle of like someone else like changing rack heights and getting their weight and all that kind of stuff. You can also like hop around. If you see the weight that you need loaded on a bar already in the warm-up room, like walk over to that platform and ask to take it, especially if it's deadlift because there's no rack heights. But even still, like on squat, people are pretty willing to like change the rack height for you to just take that same weight. And then you can also like cut or combine your warm-ups. If you're going 135, 185, 225, you could probably just go straight from 135 to 225 if you're in a pinch, and that's like one of your first couple warm-ups.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's surprisingly simple. Like once it's all labeled out, because it's like, to me, of course you would do those things. But yeah, some people just don't realize it, or they get to meet day and they freak out because it's not exactly going how they expected with speed and amount, or even if someone gets hurt or has to drop out, well, all of a sudden that changes the entire timing of everything. So
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's understandable to kind of freak out on meet day. There's a lot going on. That's one of the main benefits of like having a coach or a handler is you don't have to think about all of these things. These are the
hmm
kind of things that are like on their radar and not yours. Um, and then I would say in like even more extreme emergency kind of situations, say a lifter's stuck in the bathroom for a long time, or for some reason they show up to the meet late and they're like about to be on the platform. There's two other strategies that you can use, and unfortunately we've had to like do some of these before. You can drop their opener to their planned last warm up. That just takes off like say 5 minutes of the time that it would take to like do that last warm up and then be ready to go on the platform. The only thing there to keep in mind is you have to do it in the period when you can still change your warm ups. So for USPA, that's 5 minutes or five lifters before your flight starts. In USAPL, that's 3 minutes. You'd have to check on your specific federation. Or one other option, you can just skip your opener. Like, don't walk out there and lift. You'll just gradually time out, and they'll automatically like retake that attempt in the second round for you, and you just spend that time warming up. So that gives you like 15 minutes while your flight is taking their first attempts to like do all of your warm-ups right then if you had to. You could probably get that done in 15 minutes. Then you go take what was your opener in the second round, and then your third round you still have, you can take something. You can kind of squish together your second and third attempts, take like a light third, and like salvage your meet day that way if you need to. And I would pretty much always rather have someone do that than just walk out there cold and like try their opener without like any sort of preparation.
yeah, I think you might be a bit on the you might be like less so of the amount of people that do powerlifting, because most people aren't that conservative, and they're like, I came here for a number, I'm going for the number. But
Sure.
I feel the same way, where it's like there's 9 lifts, just build your total the best you can and let the chips fall where they may, because it would be it's less likely that you go out there and you're just like, fuck it, I was going to do this, so I'm going to try it, see what happens.
That almost never works. You're
No, it
probably,
doesn't.
even if you hit the lift, you're probably going to get red lights because something will have been like kind of wonky, or you're risking an injury. And honestly, like sometimes as a coach, you have to just step in and be the voice of reason. Like if the
Yeah.
lifter is like in the moment, they're probably not going to want you to. Like we had an older gentleman on Team USA a couple of years ago. He just was nowhere to be found during all of warm up periods. We had like five other lifters, like between multiple flights and multiple platforms. Like we didn't have time to like go track him down. And this is a world level meet, and he's on Team USA. Like he should know when it's time to like warm up. But he was nowhere to be found until like 2 minutes before he was on the platform. I was like, okay, we're gonna skip your opener and we'll go warm up. And he was like, oh no, I'm going out there, I'm gonna do this. And I was like, no, you're like 60, you're a masters lifter, you're opening at like 300 on bench. We're not just gonna like YOLO that. He was like, I'm doing it. And it got to the point where I had to like walk out there and like put my hands on the bar, talk to the head referee. I was like, he's not taking this. Because like ultimately it's in the rule book that like you're not allowed to assist your lifter during the movement, so it wasn't
Yeah.
going to count even if he tried it. Like I could just force him not to take it. So we ended up doing that. He was not too happy about it. He followed me around like cussing at me. I grabbed the head coach, let him warm him up during that time period, and then he went out there and hit his opener on the second attempt. So that ended up working out, but sometimes you just have to like be the one that's logical in those sort of situations.
Yeah, I mean, it's also as simple as just go deadlift more. It's
Yeah.
fine.
That
Just
guy,
deadlift more.
that
Make up
guy
for it.
unfortunately ended up. I think he ruptured his tricep tendon on his third bench, and he ended up coming over after the meet. He was like, "Yeah, I didn't like it at the time, but thanks for not letting me walk out there and take my bench." Because he set a squat world record. Like if he bombed out on bench because he tore his tricep with no warm up, that wouldn't have counted for anything.
Right.
Whereas this way, he at least got the second, then got fucked up. All he had to do was deadlift a plate and then like call it a day and go home, and at least the squat counted for something. So
Yeah. And I don't know. I do think it would be worse to have a lower body injury than a tricep. Like, just in my opinion, of injury risk. If you're going to go out there and, like, horribly tear a quad, I think you'd be better off tearing a tricep than a quad. So,
yeah. The good news is, like, injury rates in powerlifting are remarkably low. A lot of people have this perception that, like, lifting heavy is dangerous. It's not. This is the only sport where you're, like, in control of what you're doing, how much you're doing, and the environment you're doing it in. No one's going to, like, come out of nowhere and slide tackle you on a wet field and suddenly, like, they're in your ACL.
right.
And, like, even based on, like, studies, the powerlifting injury rates are, like, 1 to 4 per 1,000 hours. That's lower than, like, basketball or judo or all these other, like, totally normal sports.
Yeah, it's lower than any impact sport, or contact sport, rather. Like, by magnitudes. I think double or triple the lower amount of injuries. And yeah, you think about it, like, per 10,000 hours of participation. I don't even know if you in 10 years have done 10,000 hours of squat.
Sure.
Like, it takes 30 seconds, maybe, for your whole set, or multiple sets even, because if you just count, like, the active squat, the action of squatting is very quick. So yeah.
And a lot of those, like, catastrophic injuries that you see on Instagram where you're like, oh shit. Well, first off, that's coming from, like, a massive sample size of, like, everyone in the world. The moment some, like, crazy injury happens, like, of course it's gonna, like, get some traction online. But also, that's probably performance enhancing drugs. Like, we have studies and things that show that anabolic steroids increase your risk of injury, especially, like, tendon rupture, by at least, like, probably 4 or 5 times. So chances are quite high that those things would not be happening without substances behind the scene.
Well, it's very complex. Like, I think the most important factors are anabolic steroids and weight cutting. Those typically happen at meets or like at the end of a training cycle, where people are the most fatigued, or they just cut a bunch of weight, or they just water cut. So now you've dehydrated a weak tendon, and now it's fucking ready to snap, and there we are. And you have people that probably aren't conservative. So, like, if they're sore, if their pec is very sore going into a meet, chances are they're going to push it anyways, and then blam, their pec tendon fucking explodes off their chest, like the movie, like Alien, and then everyone is in a fit of rage because how could this happen to my favorite lifter?
Yeah.
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 I don't know.
Well, if you wanted to finish with the meet day stuff, we covered all the stuff in terms of, like, how to go quicker. In terms of, like, if you have to slow down, again, it's so much simpler. I would much rather be in the situation of, like, having more time than too little. But just to make sure that people know, like, these kind of strategies, you can space out your warm-up attempts, like, much more. You could take 10 to 15 minutes rest between all of them, because, again, that's about the time frame that it's going to be when you're out on the platform between your opener and your second. So that's totally fine in the warm-up room too. And if you're taking about 5 warm-ups, which most people will, if it's 15 minutes between each one, you should have plenty of time. I mean, even if the meet's going really slow, that's like over an hour, unless you started warming up like way beyond like imaginable too early, then you'll be fine. If you want to stay busy between those warm-ups, you can do your like dynamic warm-up stretching kind of stuff. Rather than just like sitting around, an extra set of single leg RDLs at body weight is not going to like ruin your squat, but it lets you do something. And then you can also retake some of your warm-ups, especially if it's still pretty light. So say you started warming up maybe 15 minutes too early, you can retake a plate. If that's like your first or second warm-up, that's not going to like fatigue you at all. And then in the like emergency kind of situation, like the only time I've really had that come up is like you're at a meet, you're ready to go, and then suddenly the meet director is like, actually we're going to add a 20-minute break between squat and bench, which huge pain in the ass. Those kind of things should really be like communicated ahead of time, because you're just screwing lifters that like plan if you do that kind of stuff. But if that happens and you've already hit your last warm up, like the heaviest thing, you can always retake a pretty light weight. Sure, it's not quite as good as like having your last warm up timed when you wanted it, but you could probably go from 400 last warm up, retake like 315 or something, and like still feel reasonably prepared going out there for your 440 opener or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, openers shouldn't be that hard anyways. It should have already been planned that you could probably do your opener cold.
Yep.
If you really had to. So, yeah, again, it's just lifters look for any reason to panic the day of. I feel like we're all prima donnas in some way. I feel like for me, I don't know, I've always, like in work, at jobs, now I'm working in a hospital, it's just very like chaos exists, entropy goes up, everyone just needs to calm down. It's going to work out in the end. You just got to trust the plan.
Well, if you have a coach and a plan, that certainly takes a load off, because all you have to do is like just lift.
I could argue that if you have zero plan, that might even be easier.
You can try that if you want, but see how it works out.
If you had no plan at all and you're just like, well, I'm just going to wing it, you have to put in openers, but that's your only plan that you have, and you're just like, everything else is going to fall into place.
Yeah. I mean, I've met some people at powerlifting meets like that, but oftentimes they're taking some totally random arbitrary weight as their opener, like 315, and then suddenly they're planning to like hit 550 or something as their third, and they have no idea what kind of weights they're taking in between.
Yeah, they just want to see how it feels.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, yeah, I guess I can do this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wild.
This is totally separate sidebar. What's the wildest thing you've seen in a warm-up room before? I can give you an example because I have it off the top of my head. I saw a guy warming up raw bench press. He's a raw lifter. Warming up with a black slingshot.
Interesting. Nothing immediately comes to mind, but I do have a couple good meet day stories. So I would say, like, first off, in terms of like crazy warm-up things, it's like always try not to flip the bar in the warm-up room. You know, if you're adjusting rack heights and there's no collar on one side and all the plates slide off and then the bar like completely flips like that with plates still on one side and not on the other, that's like genuinely extremely dangerous.
Yeah, it's more
like
chaos.
Yeah, but like imagine someone taking like a 9-foot metal baseball bat and like swinging it at your head. You'd probably end up in the hospital, if not like dead, if it hit you.
Brother, I live in Birmingham. It happens every day.
Nice. So yeah, I would say be aware of that and make sure that doesn't happen in the warm-up room, because you could seriously hurt someone. So like, put the clips on. Be careful when adjusting the rack heights. Be careful like pulling more than 2 plates off one side if they're still on the other. But in terms of like funny meet day stories, there's a really good one from when I was at Kabuki. We had this big athlete who was probably 275, kind of male, and he was covered in tattoos, like head to toe. Like I've genuinely never seen someone with more tattoos than this guy, and he was pretty scary looking. Like it took me a good like day or so to like build up the courage to like go over and talk to him. Whereas like everyone else, I like introduced myself like, you know, the first day that I saw them, tried to get to know everyone's name. But yeah, I was helping handle him at a meet. We walk into the meet. He was an untested lifter, by the way.
Oh.
He like stops, he looks around, and he's like, man, even the grandmas here have nice butts. And I was like, oh, Jesus. At least we know your androgenic drugs are working.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a similar story to that, actually. We have, shit, I don't even know if they do it anymore. There's this thing called Mayhem on the Mountain here in Birmingham, and it was a big CrossFit competition. But they did it at Oak Mountain State Park. So it was like outdoors. They had like, 9 events across the entire day, and there was like hundreds of people that came and did that. And I remember I was there working an event, basically, like we were sampling stuff. And I remember looking at one of my coworkers being like, How is everyone here hot as shit? What is happening? Every single person here that's at this competition is hot. What's going on? So, I mean, I've done that before, and I don't have the androgenic effects. So,
Well, the same guy in the same meet has my other best powerlifting story. So he hit his second squat, which was like a super grinder at like 650 or something.
nice.
He walks off the platform and he's like, I got to use the restroom. I'm like, okay, well, go do your thing. He comes back and he's like, there's a really long line. And I'm like, just tell them that you're lifting this flight and you need to use the restroom. So I walk back with him to like make sure he doesn't have any issues. Not into the restroom, just to the line.
Yeah, sure.
If he's too shy to like,
Really hands-on coach.
thanks for that. So there's like a 13-year-old kid at the front of the line, and this guy is like, "Can I cut the line?" He's like, "Can I cut the line? I gotta use the restroom." And the kid is like, "Do you need to pee or poop?" And this guy turns to him and he goes, "Honestly, bro, I just gotta wipe."
Yeah, it's too late. I kind of figured that's where I was going. It was far too late.
Yeah.
You know, that's why you always put toilet paper in the singlet. That's a pro tip.
I've never done that one, but I know plenty of people that take Imodium on meet day.
I've never done that one either. I just thought of it on the spot. So I do think it might be useful for some. I know plenty of people that have at least joked that they shit themselves. So who knows?
I've been close a couple times in training, but hasn't happened yet.
In training, yes.
Never
Yes.
on meet day, surprisingly.
No, yeah. I don't think. I feel like most people don't eat enough on meat day to have that issue, you know?
Yeah. For me, it's
I
like
wouldn't be able to.
a 3-rep max SSB squat where you get like slightly out of position and you're like, oh god, and then
I've done
afterwards,
it, yeah.
yeah.
I've had that on conventional deadlifts for sure. Some sort, maybe deficit, who knows? All that pressure, you know? It's good times. I do feel like also, back to the first thing, with like paying attention to loading and unloading the bar in the warm-up room.
Mhm.
On top of hurting people, if say no one's around, you're lucky and you're unloading a bar for the next flight or whatever, and the bar goes fucking flying through the air, you're also liable to piss everyone off, including the meet director and people like that, because you're going to hurt their equipment. So that's another reason to just be careful. I actually know 2019 when Diamond K in Birmingham was at their height. They all came down to Tuscaloosa for the Battle of the Beast, USPA Battle of the Beast. And Dante McCoy, Tank, was benching. They were warming up for bench, and someone, I think it was bench, might have been squat, shit. Somebody moved the rack height while he was like near it in some way, like maybe he was taking weight off or something, moving the bar. And they raised the rack up and it hit him directly in the eye.
Oof.
And his eye was so swollen. It looked like he was literally about to lose it. He still finished the meet like a psychopath, but that's another thing is like just pay attention to your surroundings in the warm-up room, because it's individual, but everyone wants to do the same thing and finish the meet without getting hurt. So.
Yeah. Well, I had one more good meet story, and kind of ties in with timing. So when it comes to like actually being on the platform about to take your attempt, once that 60-second timer starts, there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. Besides, like, some federations have a rule that you can replace it and get an extra 30 seconds. But beyond that, there's not a lot that you can do. The only thing that you really can is ask for a bar clean. As long as you do it before they say platform ready or whatever your federation uses to say the same thing, then it's not going to count in the lifter's time. So we had a woman at Worlds. She was 81 from Kabuki. She still deadlifted 225, something like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Pretty badass. So she had her third deadlift world record loaded up. She was going to the bathroom between every attempt because older woman and she didn't want to end up peeing. She's still on her way back from the bathroom when they're like loading her weight. So I was like, oh god. So I walk out there and ask for a bar clean and like bought her an extra 30 seconds or whatever. And she ends up making it back with like 10 seconds on the clock and like sticks her hands on the bar and picks it up and gets her world record. And I was like, whew, glad
Kind of
thing.
close.
Yeah, glad that I saved that for her.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing to be aware of, like in your toolbox as a coach or a lifter. If you're ever like trying to buy time, you just have to make sure that you ask for it prior to them calling platform ready.
Yep. Because I mean, there's always like little tips and tricks like that some people aren't going to know, and I think it's fair that people don't know stuff like that because then we're talking about extending the length of the meet all the time. So that should be like a last ditch effort kind of thing.
Sure. I think the most I've used it is like 3 times within a flight, and at that point, like the judge starts to get kind of pissed off.
You're like, hey
Uh,
man, chill.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
because we had the other Team USA coach like running between platforms, giving liftoffs, and like wanting to see some of his lifters, like and that kind of stuff. So it was like on purpose, like trying to slow the meet at certain moments to like make sure that we had people where we wanted them and that kind of stuff. But
Yes, cheesing it as you will.
yeah, but I mean, if it's within the rules, it's fine. I've had a head judge be like, "We just cleaned it last lifter," and I'm like, "Too bad." It says
Yeah.
in the rules that I'm allowed to ask for a bar clean. Nowhere
Yeah.
in the rule book does it say that you're allowed to say no. Therefore, you have to do it.
Ah, that's funny as fuck. Yeah, I can already envision myself as a spotter and getting pissed off. I
But I
definitely would
mean,
have.
whether you're a lifter or a coach, I'd say like reading the rule book and like knowing these things just gives you like more tools to be able to like manage different situations on meet day.
Yeah, but you can also just go out there, lift, no plan, tell them some openers. Maybe you do them, maybe you don't. Who
That works
knows?
for most people, but like if you have a large handful and you do a lot of meets, at some point you're probably going to run into situations where you have to like do these sorts of things.
Fine, it'll all work out. Everything comes out in the wash. It's just how life is. Life finds a way. I don't know. There's a lot of analogies there.
Okay. In terms of like training philosophy or like methodology, uh, I don't like super subscribe to one like really hard. I would just say the biggest like overarching thing for me is I think a lot of powerlifters drastically undervalue muscle mass. Like they don't realize that if you get jacked, you're probably going to end up also getting pretty strong. Or like even from a more scientific perspective, like the main factors that influence muscle mass, or sorry, the main factors that influence strength is like how much muscle mass do you have, and then how well can you like recruit and utilize that all at once. So it's like the the neurological kind of component and like the skill component of strength, plus just how big is the muscle. So increasing muscle mass is a great way to get stronger. There's a study even, Ye et al. 2013. I reference that one pretty often, but they suggested that for every kilo of muscle mass that you added, you could realistically add 5 to 8 kilos on your squat or deadlift, and 3 to 5 kilos on your bench press. So if you added 20 pounds of muscle mass, that's potentially 100 to 160 pounds on both your squat and deadlift, and potentially 100 pounds on your bench press, which is massive.
Yeah.
So like putting on muscle should be a top priority in powerlifting. And with that, I feel like I lean more towards like a concurrent sort of training approach, which is basically just fancy term for like you can train multiple qualities at once. You can both try and get stronger and put on muscle pretty much year round. I don't think that you need like a super block periodization style where you're like strictly doing hypertrophy and then strictly doing strength, and then by the end of it you've like totally detrained and lost a lot of muscle mass, and at the beginning of it you're not doing anything that like actually gets you stronger because it's all like sets of 12 or something. Powerlifting is pretty simple, and like these aren't really conflicting qualities. I think that you can do something fairly heavy that improves the skill and neurological component of getting strong, and then do other stuff higher rep that helps you put on muscle mass, and do basically that same thing pretty much year round.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I think it's more individual based than, based off someone's goals. Some people genuinely don't care if they put on muscle. So I wouldn't subscribe them to that just because if they don't care, I don't care. We can still get strong without it. Mm-hmm. There are a fair amount of examples of people that aren't super jacked looking, or even just they don't look like a bodybuilder and they're still super strong. But yeah, I would say that's a fair way to do it. I don't know anyone that would be like, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be more jacked. There's not many people that are like that. Um, I've had a few. They're normally like maybe heavier set sometimes already, and they're like, yeah, I don't really care to lose some weight and put on muscle because I just like where I'm at. But then, it's individual based again. So like those people would just get slightly different training, and then you have people that like, can they? I mean, there's like an economic part of that as well. Like, can they afford to actually put on muscle? Like, in terms of buying enough food to do so. So, yeah. Anyways, that would be my only thing I would say.
In terms of like, there are people that don't look that muscular and like are still really strong. It's like, well, just because they are doesn't mean that you can be. Uh, and like, just because they are doesn't mean that they wouldn't be much better if they did have muscle. Like, muscle
Yeah.
mass is one of the few manipulatable kind of variables in terms of like strength that we have, because we're not able to like hack off our muscles and like change where they like insert on the bone to like give you better leverage. It's like
Right.
how long your limbs are, where the muscles insert, like things like that influence it too. But in terms of the ones that we like have control over, it's mostly like how much muscle mass do you have and then how well can you utilize it.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
say like, yeah, muscle mass is like the way to go. At least if you're like really serious about powerlifting and want to get good.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
And then I'm also a big fan of like variations of movements. I don't necessarily like use strictly just the competition lifts year round. Um, but with that being said, I pretty much only give variations to people if they're worthy. Like, you have to be a certain level of good at lifting before you can really use variations, because before that you just have to get better at doing the competition lift itself. If you can't squat, you're not going to like safety bar squat. Um, but I would say a lot of people use variations more so in like, oh, this is your weak point in your movement, or this really emphasizes a certain muscle or whatever. Like conventional deadlift is going to train your glutes and your low back more. But I would say like variations can also be viewed from a skill perspective. If you miss your back squat because your chest caves over, or you shift hard onto your toes, something like that, and you give someone a front squat, if they get rounded over or shift onto their toes, the bar is just going to like roll off of them and like fall forwards. So they're going to learn to like fix that really quick. So exercise choice can be so much more than just what muscle group is this training or what does this bias. It can be like from a movement and like technique kind of perspective as well.
Yeah. I agree. I don't really see much value in programming things for a weakness standpoint because it's never a single factor. So yeah, I agree. I don't know. I still see that a lot. I'm kind of surprised by it, but you know, like you said, if you're getting pitched forward in your squat a lot, and we're gonna do SSB to fix that, it's like, yeah, that could work, but that you're taking one single factor and saying this is going to fix it, which
Mm-hmm.
is almost never the case.
I think so. I got something from Seth Albersworth that I think is like a great addition on that. It's like most people have this linear tree of like, if I have my back round, then it's because my back is weak. And it's like, well, maybe, but it should probably be split at least into like two on that kind of tree of does the lift get better or worse after that happens? If your back rounds and then suddenly it goes to shit and you miss it, yeah, maybe your back is weak, I guess. But if your back rounds and then suddenly the weight starts moving and you actually manage to finish it, then maybe it's actually your glutes and hamstrings are weak, and your back rounding means that you can get your hips a little closer to the bar and like they don't have to do as much work, and then suddenly you're able to finish the rep. So it's like those are two wildly different expressions of the same thing happening, and I think a lot of people completely miss that aspect and just like have that one-to-one kind of thing in their head.
Yeah, that's where plateau comes from. Is when they just say this happens, so that means definitely this is the problem.
Yeah, but pretty much
It's,
every technique thing has like those couple layers to it. Like if you have your knees like shoot back really hard on a squat, and then suddenly you're like really bent over and your legs are straighter. If it suddenly stalls out, then like yeah, maybe your quads are weak and you need to like have those stronger so that you can push up and have the bar actually move with your legs. If suddenly you do that and then you're able to finish really quick and smooth from there, then you probably were just shifting into a position where you were stronger, and now you can actually use your stronger muscles. So I'd say it's drastically different between, does it go up and suddenly get good after something happens, or does it crash and burn and fail?
Yep, I would agree. Because that could also be like, do we need to change your positioning in general? It's like if you're getting out of position so much every time, maybe it's a positional thing and not a weak muscle thing.
Yep.
So, yeah. It's just the classic of people taking a complex thing and moving it into a singular bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where the foundations help. That's when you can foundationally know, like, there's so many factors at play that's not just a weak back. Because you could argue, even if you finish a lift, you can argue you have a weak back because it could always be stronger.
Yeah.
So,
pretty much everything in your body could always be stronger.
right.
Just keep getting everything good.
And now we're in a never-ending cycle, so I appreciate you coming on, and tell everyone where they can find you. And then I know you have some educational material out there if you want to point it to them, and I'll throw a link somewhere for it as well.
Sure. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So my Instagram is Michael _Elrod_Erickson. So that's MICHAEL_ELROD_ERICKSON. A little long, but
You know,
I use my name. So
of course.
my email is michael@liftpremier.com, and then my website is liftpremier.com. So I've got articles up there, like a guide on peaking and tapering for powerlifting meets. I've got some free resources, like a sumo deadlift guide, how to transition from conventional into sumo. And then you can also find information about my coaching services, or people could always reach out to me, and I'd be happy to chat about it.
Very good. Again, appreciate you coming on. This was fun. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
thanks
do
for
it
having
again
me.
sometimes. Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.